What's good, America? It's your man, Reggie Florima, a.k.a. Big Flo. Again, today we don't have Big O. I think he's feeling a little sick today, but that's okay. Been a few weeks now since we had a show. Wanted to give you guys some new content, come back. Um, did a little traveling this week. I'll save some of my traveling story for after my guest. But our next guest is a guy I got the opportunity to play with and watch perform at the highest level back in Notre Dame. He was a 1993 second pick overall in the drafts to the Seattle Seahawks. Led Notre Dame to more wins, I think, or second most wins when he left the university, and scored more points as a runner and a thrower than anybody in Notre Dame history. Please put your hands together for Rick Mirer. What's up, Rick?
Hey, good to see you.
So I feel old now because I knew him when he was Rick Mirer. Now he's Richard Mirer. So we sit up straight, and everybody, we get a little older now. Got to get the switch back. So yep. How things going in California, my friend?
They're going as well as they can at this point. I'm happy to have my kids around, and everything's pretty good right now.
I just got back from California yesterday. Actually, I spent a week out there. I was in Irvine, up the street from you, checking out a little bit. So I see why you guys pay all those taxes. It's real beautiful out there. I see why you choose to settle down in that place. But I don't know. You don't want those no tax states like Arizona or Texas. Didn't grab you, huh?
I was lucky enough to be in Washington my first 4 years, so I took advantage of that when I could. And
there are no state taxes in Washington?
No, Seattle was one of those places, and I was just lucky. I didn't know, but we haven't thought like that since. But with the things the way they are these days, it makes you wonder.
Yeah,
when you live in Texas or Tennessee or Florida or something.
No, I'm in Chicago. We like to pay taxes here too for all the great weather or snow removal. I don't know exactly what it goes for. So,
yeah.
Anyway, well, I knew Rick back from the day I came in Notre Dame. I was a freshman. He was a junior, I suppose. I think he came in there before me, or '89. I got there '91. Back then, Rick was kind of the different Rick. My Rick Mirer story was one time I had a car as a freshman. I know I wasn't supposed to have a car, but I had a car as a freshman, so people used to bum me for rides. So my Rick Mirer story was some girl asked me to drive her to a tanning bed off the street. So I drove her to the tanning bed, and I'm sitting in that lobby. Everybody knows I'm not there to get a tan, and here comes Rick Mirer walking out the tanning bed. And I thought, oh shit, I am gonna kill this dude. I was like, hey Rick, what's going on? You're like, nothing, man. That's probably the first time you ever talked to me. I was just a lowly freshman. I'm like, what's up, man? What are you doing, man? You hear somebody? You're like, man, no, man. Spring break's coming, man. I just got to get a layer so I don't burn. I was like, I bet he never thought he would explain himself to a freshman in his life. So that's my Rick Mirer story. Do you remember that?
I no. I mean,
yes, you do.
That's like not the thing you want to remember.
That's the thing you want to remember. So that was my Rick Mirer story. Then he went on to get drafted, second pick of drafts. I'm sure he wasn't worried about that kind of stuff. So, but yeah. So Rick, you came out highly touted from high school, number one player on some accounts in the nation, number one quarterback at least. Growing up right there in Goshen. Talk to me about that, man. Were you you played for your father, right?
I played at the school he coached at for 20 years, but he left when I was coming in. So we didn't have that worked out perfect.
So was that he didn't want to coach his son? He wanted to let that go, or just retirement ready for?
I don't know what he thought was going to happen, but I think he realized he had an opportunity to do something else. He wasn't getting any younger. I think he thought I could be pretty good, and he didn't generally throw the ball very, very much.
Yeah.
It was easy to hand it off and step back.
Mm-hmm.
Best thing that could have happened for me. And I didn't, I mean, I kind of felt like that was okay then. It shocked me when it was happening. But when they named the new guy who had been an assistant for my dad and had left and come back, it was pretty easy. And we had a great run. And if I threw it 30 times in a game, it wasn't like my dad was doing it,
I completely understand that. And, believe me, I didn't coach at the level as your father or have the situation, but I coached my son when he was a little kid. And when he got to high school, I've had the opportunity to go in there and do some coaching. And I'm like, I just want to be his dad,
Yeah.
And so I could see why your dad would be like, I yell at him enough. Let me just sit back there and root for him.
I had the conversation yesterday at this football thing with my youngest, and someone was asking me about coaching at our school or coaching at a different level. I said, that ship sailed, first of all. Yeah. But for my kids, I was with them when they were 8, 9, 10, 11 years old. And it's like, if it isn't one of us, it's somebody screaming at him and I don't know, a different version of how to coach football. I enjoyed those years. That was enough. But there was no real pressure compared to like the recruiting stuff and all that now.
Yeah.
And it's fun to just to be the dad, just be the parent and sit back and watch.
Yeah, for sure. I agree. And I think, those of you out here listening have had the opportunity to do it. Coach your son, please do. But when there's a time to stop, please do. Or your daughter, please do. So you do that. So coming up, Goshen, Indiana. That's what, about 30 minutes about from South Bend, right? Something like that?
Yep, 30 minutes.
So you always a Notre Dame fan? Was it a done deal from the start, or was it one of those things that just came down to the wire? Because obviously, being a highly touted pick, there had to be a bunch of schools after you. And thinking of it, was it a one horse race or what?
No, it came down to the wire, and if they don't win the championship in '88, it would have felt different at the time. What it was, and I don't know. Vinny Serrato kind of sunk his teeth into me at the right time, and Barry Alvarez was recruiting the area, and Holtz was winning a national championship. So it was that was a pretty attractive place to look at. I didn't grow up Catholic. I wasn't one of those kids who just never thought of other schools. I was a Big Ten kind of fan. Michigan was always going to be hard to say no to, and it came down to those two at the end for me. And even though I went to UCLA and Florida State and looked around those places.
Free vacation.
Yeah. Sunshine. But, the right spot for me was somewhere in the Midwest, and it just turned out that was the right spot at that moment.
Well, it obviously worked out for you. I think we won a few games while you were there, and things worked out pretty well. So coming into South Bend, you started off behind Tony Rice, right? You spent the year as backup, or
yeah?
Okay, got that right.
My freshman year, I played in a little bit of half the games. And, Tony was awesome to be behind and to be around. Pressure was on him, not me. So I was just observing and learning and trying to run if something happened, I had to be him. And that was a fun role. And I was young and took it like I think you're supposed to, and just accepted it and wasn't in a hurry to play. But I wanted to start as a sophomore and got a chance to do that. And then I just never wanted to let go of it.
Never wanted to give it up. Now, I always wanted in my tenure, and actually kind of looking back probably more than when I was there, we tend to, Coach Holtz liked to recruit throwers, but he liked to run the option. Did you run a lot in high school as well?
We threw more than we ran, but it wasn't the greatest competition. I mean, it's not a Florida or Texas kind of schools, but it was pretty balanced. But other schools would have been throwing more than running, and I knew what I was getting into, and I knew what the history was. It didn't really help me that much for the next level. Looking back, it was like, damn, it would have been helpful to get into more protection and audibles and stuff. But I just wanted to win games, and I wanted to be around people that were winners, and the degree meant something to me, and I got what I signed up for. I didn't really question the offense because we had so many weapons. It'd have been crazy to complain about how we scored.
Yeah. I mean, we had so many running backs. We were such a running team, such a run heavy team. And as a guy, when I was coming out and I saw like all the, the quarterback, attention that we had or whatever, I kind of looked at it the same way. I'm a grunt, right? I'm O-line, D-line, bus line, whichever one they wanted to put me on. But like watching the quarterbacks, I'm like, okay, we don't throw the ball all over the place, right? We run the option or whatever, and then we hit somebody with the deep bomb and do whatever. Your dad being a coach and he was a running coach and stuff like that. I guess the know better, do better. Again, obviously it worked out perfectly for you, but from a standpoint of choosing a school, that didn't deter you? Because I think Michigan probably passed a little bit more than they're probably similar though. They passed a little bit more though.
I mean, you got to plan weather there, right? So, and you got to, we needed the mutters and you got to be able to get first downs and stuff. So, Miami was all over me. And I remember talking to, the Stanfords and the UCLAs, and it was finesse. It was a lot of finesse, which is great if you can control things. But I just kind of was raised around practicing outdoors, getting cold, playing in the. It's just the way it was, and I didn't have a problem doing that.
Yeah. Well, that's fantastic. Well, again, as I mentioned, some of your accolades in college, and you scored with your legs and you scored with your arms. So you did great. So fast forward now, I believe it was 90. 22, you were going to come out, and then you decided to come back. What was part of that decision to make you come back? Because I remember that wasn't something that was just a given.
Well, not many guys came out early back then. Rocket did it. I I considered it because at some point, like, you can't really go up any higher in certain categories or whatever draft wise. I was like, man, I'm going to regret this forever. And I want to win with these guys. And I really thought we had a championship team, and I would have loved the Final Four kind of set up the way the BCS works now. Would have
Give
been
us a shot, yeah.
Would have been good for us. But I wasn't ready to be done with college. I figured that'll be there, and I had never been hurt. I wasn't concerned about that. You get a little insurance policy and stuff, but it's a lot different today. So whatever, however it goes now, it's more of a business decision than it used to be way back then. But yeah, I never ever regretted that. You wind up where you're gonna wind up, and it was fun to finish what we started. And then I actually graduated a semester, so I had the whole spring without real.
Hang out. Yeah.
It wasn't so hard. I kind of got the best of both worlds.
No, again, and it worked out. It was the decision that we've seen guys come back early and unfortunately get injured. Come out early and get injured. If you come out and damn, you're the second pick of the draft. So maybe you come out there with the first pick. Who knows what could have happened? But obviously, it seemed like it helped out. It worked out for you. Talk us through that, because I remember, for myself, just being a guy behind you watching and see that happen, that was like an amazing thing. I'm like, this dude could be the first or second pick in the draft. Like, I didn't think, you go your whole life, you don't think you're even going to meet a person that's in that conversation, but to have a teammate do that, it was like, wow. Talk me through that and how the transition. Goshen, Indiana, for those of you who don't know, it's just Midwestern town, right? It's the, I don't know how many stoplights, whatever, but it's not like you grew up in LA or New York, these big markets. What is that like to the mind of a 22-year-old guy that you might be the first or second pick or whatever pick in the NFL draft? How does that take your brain?
I guess walking into a program that was coming off a national championship, all this media attention, national, global attention, really.
Mm-hmm.
You just get used to sort of that being normal and that being the way it is. I never was overwhelmed with whatever magazines and the obligations with the media and stuff. So it just kind of came with the territory. I was surrounded by great players and great coaches, and I got the benefit from that. That's how I felt about it. The Reggie Brookses and Rickies and Jeromes and those guys. I mean, I don't get what I get if it isn't for those guys and everybody up front and all that too. So
you felt well groomed for the situation at hand, just the logical next step.
Yeah, it was a logical next step. It was a dream come true, but
I get it. Yeah,
you just kind of have to be big enough and fast enough and stuff. And I kind of fit check those boxes, and then you got to go off and prove it again. You got to start over.
So going through draft day, did you think that you were going to go to Seattle? Where did you expect to go that day?
Didn't know. I knew it was one or two. They both teams had said that, and drew pretty well just through the process. So we were like, we'll see what happens. So I found out when the world found out, and it didn't surprise me, but it didn't, I was excited and everything. And so either way, I was ready to accept either one. Obviously it was a pretty good situation. I didn't have to sit around very long.
I'm sorry. Who had the first pick that year?
Yeah. New England.
New England. Yeah. The first pick. Yeah.
And both teams were bad. Like you're a bad team. That's the flip side of the whole thing. I mean, and that's kind of historically been difficult for most guys. I mean, there's a few exceptions, but 2-14 and then go play. It's tough.
Yeah. We're going to get into that a little bit further. That's actually a major portion of something I like to talk about. So you come out of the NFL, you were AFC Rookie of the Year, little Notre Dame brag. I think Jerome was Rookie of the Year. You finished second.
We were 1-3. Jerome, Reggie, and I
1, 2, and 3.
Yeah, so we offensive wise, we were 1, 2, 3.
Okay, I thought that was awesome. I'm like, Jesus, that's a nice little way to go. Is there a banquet for that stuff, or you just name you?
There is now, probably that with the NFL honors, I think. But there's a little hardware, and it might have been an announcement, but it wasn't an obligation to go anywhere. I don't remember doing anything for that, but it's an honor to be. Rookie of the Year doesn't mean you're dominating the league; just means
But the rookies. But I mean, hey, somebody had to get it. Right?
Yeah,
so it worked out.
I started all 16 games and lived to tell. I mean, that was hard. That was
Yeah.
something, and those guys had great years too. And we just we just want to contribute, and coming from places or a place that had won historically our whole time.
Mm-hmm.
It's frustrating. I mean, we all probably had losing records as on the teams we were on, but we got to play and get acclimated to that level and gear up for the next, the second.
Comes with a nice little check too. So, hey, while you're there for your efforts or whatever. So you're there after Seattle. Where were you after that? Was that Chicago right away?
Chicago, yeah. After 4 years in Seattle, I went to Chicago.
You didn't like us very much though here in Chicago, huh? You weren't a big fan?
I really wanted that to work. I had a choice. I could have gone to Atlanta. There was a couple different things going on, and I wanted Chicago to work. Our oldest son was born in the Lake Forest Hospital there in Chicago in '98. Dave Wannstedt was the head coach. Nice guy. I don't know. The place was dysfunctional. It was a tough stretch. Hasn't been a
Hey, listen, man, we've never had a successful quarterback. Even when we won the Super Bowl, it really wasn't like he was McMahon was great. I don't care because right now the big thing in Chicago is, we could have had Watson or we could have had Mahomes. And my argument is if Watson or Mahomes came to Chicago, they wouldn't have been successful.
It would have been
I really believe that in my heart too. They would not have been successful here. I'm glad because I'm a fan of the sport and I'm a fan of those players. I'm glad they went somewhere else because we ruined quarterbacks here. So
that happens. I mean, I could have played better, but I mean, everything was an uphill battle. I mean, it was just that was hard. But that only lasted a season. Then I went to Green Bay, which was.
I'm glad that didn't work. You want to be a Packer? Why do you want to go to Packers? Who likes to go to Green Bay? The colors are ugly. It's cold. Come on.
It was actually a really cool experience, though, and I didn't care, as a fan or whatever. I mean, the Packer thing was fascinating, kind of, because those years they were, what Brett and those guys won't happen again, can't happen again. The way around and that team just kind of figured it out and stayed together pretty good. But as it worked out, then if you're backing up Brett Favre, you're going to get traded because Brett doesn't ever miss a game. So I get traded in training camp to the Jets after 4 days or something after we play the Jets in the preseason game. So talk about culture shock. You go from De Pere, Wisconsin to Long in a day, and so that's where it got really hard. I thought it was already hard, but then to go to New York with another team actually coming off a pretty good season, but Vinny Testaverde was the starter, and sure enough, he tears his Achilles in the first half of the first game. And so then I'm up having been there a couple weeks. And that was a treat, but again, I lived to tell how that story went down, and Belichick was on that staff and Charlie Weiss was on that staff. And it was Bill Parcells, God bless him. I mean, Hall of Fame coach and many guys' favorite, tough guy to play for when it's not going well. I mean, that was probably bottom for me. I mean, that was really like, man, where do you go from here? That's how that felt. So relieved when that season ended. And sure enough, he resigns in the team meeting at the end of the season and says, he announces Bill Belichick's going to be the head coach. And the look on Bill's face was like, he already had something worked out with the Patriots, or at least thought he got at that. So I'm like, just get me on an airplane because I need to regroup, And then things kind of changed where I went to San Francisco for a couple of years, then Oakland for a couple of years, and then to Detroit for my last year back with Mariucci, who was in San Francisco. And, living in San Diego, having a couple 4-year run in my own kind of time zone, it just felt better. And I wanted to play, but I wasn't the starter. But I was behind guys who were going to Pro Bowls, and it was just fun to be supportive and kind of be the veteran guy at that point.
Hey, looking back nowadays, when you get out of the bed now, and you start thinking there's the worst things in the world and getting paid a nice amount of money and not get all those hits. You know what I mean? Like someone told me a long time ago, the number one job in professional sports is the third string quarterback, baby. You get out, you don't even shower after the game, you get to go home, you get paid pretty good. Nobody can touch you. So it is what it is. But obviously, through the conversation, and I'm not here to say anything critical, but your NFL career didn't go exactly how you had dreamed it to go, in different ways there. But you said something earlier about going to a team, because I've had this conversation with a lot of people just not off the show or whatever about quarterbacks, and people throw the word bust around, which I think is hilarious when you look at a professional athlete for someone to have the nerve to criticize them from their couch while they're drinking a beer. But you look at these guys, quarterbacks, and you have the first pick in the draft. If you have the first pick in the draft, you suck, and you have a lot of holes, and you pick a quarterback. And if you go back, there's so few quarterbacks that I see through our lifetime. We can go on and on and on that get picked in the first couple picks that stay with that team and things work out well, because you're never a quarterback away. Your line sucks, probably. You don't have any receivers, whatever. It's a tough job, man, to come out of college and just save a team at the quarterback position. What do you think about that?
It's too much. Yeah, it's really hard. And generally that coach who picked you is not going to be there very long.
Right.
Unless it's kind of like whatever the Jets might have happened this year. Do they win once or twice and start over with coaching and then pick this kid, first? And I mean, that's because nowadays, I mean, they need you to play.
Mm-hmm.
I played right away because of a bunch of different circumstances, but the Aaron Rodgers formulas
is the best.
That's pretty good.
The best. Yeah. Or you look at the people who end up doing our guy at I can't believe it, the Baltimore quarterback right now from Louisville.
Oh,
I can't.
Yeah.
I can't believe we're going through this. We're both old. Senior moment for both of us. But anyway, he slips in the draft, and now what is it? He does great. You end up getting some of these situations where you slip in the draft, so you go to a better team. Now you have an opportunity, a team that was not just a quarterback away, and you go. Another thing I think a lot in the NFL, you mentioned another thing about the quarterback, the coach that drafted you is gone, so now you got this new dude that inherits you. And I think of this kind of goes back to my question about you picking Notre Dame. That's like an option team as a passing quarterback. I think a lot of people draft these quarterbacks, and they draft and other players, other positions as well, and they want them to do something different that they did that made them draftable. The Bears are good at, they'll get these guys and they want them to dink and dunk, but these guys are deep throwers when they were in school. They get, like, you drafted me because I can do X, Y, Z, but then you want me to do ABC when you get to the NFL. And it's crazy to me. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. I think the coaching really matters. I mean, it sounds simple. And I think people, play video games and watch the game, see like, oh, it looks like the same plays. It's not like the sequence and the prep and what you're looking at and why you're just, picking what you're doing at the line of scrimmage, the way you do it is huge. Mm-hmm. And a guy might not have done that in college. I didn't do that. We didn't, I rarely could change the play. It wasn't that kind of.
Rick, what are you doing? I can just imagine if you tried to change.
Oh, it was awesome. Yeah. Once in a while, if you changed it and it worked, great. If it didn't, it's like, I'd try to avoid him on the side. Like just, mm-hmm. But now, I don't know, the IQ, the teaching, and they get these guys when they're in the 6th grade, it seems like, and they start studying, football. That didn't used to be the way it was. And I was on, I'm not going to name any names, but I mean, I was around coaches and staffs that just weren't very organized. Because once I got to a place that was, it's like, holy cow, this is what we're playing against. This is what I haven't seen. Like, I didn't know what made certain teams so productive and certain guys so productive. And being around 7 different teams and sort of seeing a bunch of different coordinators and head coaches, it just was an amazing experience to kind of figure out like what does work and what doesn't work.
I won't ask you to bash anybody, but what's the best organization that you were part of?
It depends on the timing. I would say I had an amazing experience in Green Bay, and I didn't play one play. But I respect Mike Holt.
The way that they ran the organization.
And that was a smooth running operation and a really football town. But I would say San Francisco was a first class and had been for a long time. We went to the playoffs with a young team. Steve Mariucci was just a player-friendly kind of coach. I thought Bill Walsh was still around. That was a first-class operation. And as a free agent, how does it work in the hotels? What kind of planes? How are these guys traveling? Like the Niners were notoriously better than everyone else at guys And so free agents wound up there a lot, and I had a chance, and I did. But I enjoyed, as much as it was shocking, like playing against the Raiders as much as I did in Seattle. Being on that team was awesome.
Oh,
And
really?
went to the Super Bowl and lost to Tampa, but it was one of those kind of crazy things where they're so hard to play against when they were really good, or at least very competitive. But when it's like when they got your back, it felt like a whole different kind of football.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't evil. It looks kind of crazy with the painted faces and some of the black hole kind of thing. But it was just actually just super supportive, and that was a fun thing to be a part of. I'd seen it as an opponent where they're throwing stuff at you,
Yeah.
but it's cool when they got your back.
So that's the thing's weird because they've moved around a lot. I mean, they've been, Oakland twice, LA twice, or LA once, I think, and then now they're moving to Vegas. Do you think that that's going to travel well, or you think that's going to be kind of
I think
the
it's
end of the Oakland
no, they'll pull from
families?
Diego, they'll pull from LA, they got Vegas, they'll pull from Oakland. I mean, they got 4 cities now. Unlike
Hmm.
the Chargers, who San Diego's grumpy about that, so they're not getting much love in LA from San Diego, whatever, 50 years of support from San Diego. So
Hmm.
I think the Raider thing is it's just a different animal. And they got to perform, but they're going to have support.
Why do you think LA has such a hard time with football? I mean, it's like it's failure, failure, but then it's like you go away and they'll be like, I can do it this time. They try again. I wouldn't know if they consider this one a success or failure, but I mean, 2 teams, 1 stadium, maybe it's success. Oh, we have COVID, so how do we know?
It's hard now. I think, when you have the right ownership, which the Rams do, you build a $5 billion stadium, people are going to want to go see that. I mean,
Hmm.
the Coliseum and some of the old stuff. There's so many other things to do on a sunny day in September. That maybe not everyone shows up for the football games, but it shouldn't be that hard. But it's, I mean, players want to go be somewhere warm, but
Is LA full of transplants? Are there like a lot of people that are non? Because I thought about that. Like the Florida Marlins had a hard time. I think even when they were winning the World Series because a lot of people in South Florida are transplants. Is that the same problem in LA?
yeah, probably. And it's also not that easy to get around. So if
Yeah.
you're not close. How hard do you want to? How hard do you want to try? I mean, football's
Hmm.
pretty good on your couch these days.
Yeah, especially at 10 a.m. You guys got those early games out there. It's
Yeah,
hard for me to, as a Midwesterner, to get used to those morning games, like breakfast football.
yep. No, you get used to it quick because it's like I was in Indiana last weekend with my parents, and it's like 1 o'clock and games are coming on. I'm thinking it's just a later day. It's different. But
Yeah, that's so doing. Did you ever think about getting into coaching when you came out of football?
when I was probably 10 years in, I was pretty close to some of the assistants and coordinators and guys I was around, quarterback stuff. And I asked a lot of them, from Tom Rathman to Greg Olson to Greg Knapp, and guys who've had coordinator jobs and played and did a lot of different things. Andy Reid, and I mean, you just have to be all in. And I knew I wasn't. I had really young kids. I wanted to be around them more than I saw those guys get to be around their kids.
Hmm.
And I was kind of tired. I mean, I just was a little bit exhausted from all the X's and O's. Some people can't get enough. I kind of had enough. I miss it because I would have been good at that. I think I coached
Hmm.
something that would have come pretty naturally to me. Um, but I couldn't do the grind. I couldn't do the moving every other year, possibly.
I was going to ask you that with the move. Because did you make San Diego your home early in your NFL career?
We did. Didn't have any idea it would stick the way it did, but when
Hmm.
even Seattle, we bought a place in Del Mar here, and it was like an off season, and no kids yet, and small place close to the water. I didn't need to be in the water, but it was pretty nice to be near the water, and
Hmm.
that was 23 years ago. You know,
Yeah. So your wife and kids didn't come to the different cities when you would do that,
we
or
did
you?
always did. We rented and
Okay.
a lot of 1 year, kind of maybe another one. So it was tough to commit to. And schools didn't matter until the kids are old enough.
Hmm.
Pretty easy to bounce back and forth, but I couldn't not have them there. And I didn't play. I mean, when I was done, my oldest was like 7 or something. So he remembers a little bit, but it's not like they were, getting into high school and stuff.
Right, and losing friends and stuff, they could do it. And that gives you a taste, though. Switching, your football career kind of give you an idea of what the NFL or college's coaching career is going to be like and moving. And I often say it takes a special kind of wife. No knock against the wives that can't do it, but it takes a special kind of wife to really be able to be a coach's wife and just we can move at a moment's notice. It's almost like keeping a travel bag or something. Just keep one by the door. You never know when you're going to leave and have to get out of here. And I think that could take a toll. I couldn't imagine it myself.
Yeah, I mean, I think you just got to be all in. And what has changed too in the last 10 years is they're paying these guys now. I mean, there's for a former player to roll right into it today, it makes quite a bit of sense if it works for your family, depending on kids and stuff. So I can see why a lot of guys do it. I think those would be the best coaches there are, and there could be, but you have to be in it together. And it's not like Stephanie said, don't do it, but I just knew that I wasn't into it enough to make it. And I always thought like maybe I'll get talked into something, and it just passed.
Yeah, or maybe college. I think sometimes college is. Although with college you got the recruiting, that's never ends. So you're always on the road doing that stuff. But I think sometimes those college towns are a little friendlier for the family to grow up in. They're a little bit more, especially a Midwestern guy. Like a more wholesome towns that you grow up in. People can hang out and do whatever and get around each other and maybe last a little bit longer. And the NFL is just boom, boom, boom.
Yeah, if you don't win, you're out. It's a different deal.
So 2008, you switch from football. You say, I'm not coaching anymore. I'm not playing anymore. And then you start a wine company. How do you move from tackling, beer drinking, keg stand college boy to fine red wine? And if you haven't had Mirer wine, you have to try it.
One thing led to another, but if I don't do 4 years in the Bay Area back-to-back teams, so 2 with the Raiders and two with the Niners first and then 2 with the Raiders, this doesn't happen. So basically with training camp in Napa, I'd already been a fan of wine not as a young 20-something-year-old, but as an older 20-something.
As a teenager, what were you saying?
That all came to me later, but living in California, I felt like, gosh, I knew a lot of guys that had restaurants and stuff and good food, and my wife's a great cook, so I just wanted to understand wine, and I just got into it and studied it and collected it, and I wanted the stuff that was really hard to find. And after meeting a bunch of people and spending time in around wine country, I didn't know what would happen if we started what we did. Proud that it's been almost 13 years. It is 13 years now. But it was kind of like, let's just see what happens. And it was a very small project. It's still small, but we've had great reach. I kind of felt like the Notre Dame community would be interested at least to at least introduce. And now we're doing stuff with the university with some of their wine program, which is pretty new still.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah. So it's kind of, it travels well. I mean, I like golf. Wine works at the golf courses, good food. It kind of goes wherever I go.
So what's behind the name Mirer Wine? I think I've asked you this before, but like people understand it.
When I actually started, I had 2 partners. One was a friend who had another brand who was really my biggest influence. And then his buddy who was a winemaker who was my partner for the first 8 or 9 years. And they had a project in place without a real brand associated to it, but they were referring to it as the Mirer Vineyards Project because there were 2 vineyards that mirrored each other across St. Helena, kind of in the middle of Napa Valley. And they had one wine, Cabernet, 2 different sources, and they had it kind of ready to go. They just needed somebody to run with the brand. I go, hold on, it's called Mirer, or you're calling it Mirer? I go, that's perfect. I don't need I don't need attention to my name. I don't want to be Meyer family something. Mirer was kind of the perfect. It's actually a true story with or without me, but it was a play on our name enough that it was interesting. And a lot of people think that that's what it was from, but it just kind of felt right. And, then we just needed to make it look right. And it's been well received. And when you're small, it's hard. It's a tough business. It's hard to compete with the big guys and get every contribution, but slowly but surely we're chipping away at it. And really, when people find that, some of the social media stuff we do or things on our website, we can ship all over the place. And that's how we want to interact with people.
Yeah, and I've had it shipped out before. I used to send it to my customers. I thought it was a good story. Hey, my old teammate, he's got a wine company. Here you go. Congratulations. Thanks for your business. So, and they've always liked it. Everyone's liked the wine. I'm more of a white wine, but I'll look at your website. See, you now have a Chardonnay. I might have to try that.
Yeah, there's Chardonnay and Sauv Blanc, and we did a rosé for the first time. We're going to do,
Okay.
technically, to me, it's a white wine, but yeah, it's grown into 5 different wines. That'll probably be enough, but
Yeah.
yeah, it's still a small project and intended to be something that isn't just everywhere.
So is COVID good or bad for wine consumption?
You know, unfortunately, good. I mean, I'm embarrassed to say it's probably one of our better years.
Mm-hmm.
There's the restaurant part's been virtually, you know, at a halt. I mean, there's a little bit of carry out stuff in some places, private clubs and stuff, but most states are very, very quiet. But the direct and the gifts have never been more robust. People can,
Mm-hmm.
and I think it's also we're all you buy a pair of shoes, you send them, whatever, you send stuff to your house every day. So wine's
Mm-hmm.
another one of those things, and if you're already home and you have to sign for it, it's not that big a deal. So I think that, and we really have a good time in the holidays because the gift giving part is fun and that people share it and it's okay to celebrate. So it's been a weird 2020, obviously, but for the wine business, it's been kind of a fun way to do more social media, which I never expected to want to do, but it is pretty pure the way we're doing it, and it's us and it's me a lot of times saying things, and it's just a way to interact and try to find people and entertain them a little bit because they're sitting around with less going on.
Less to do. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot more spending time together. There's a lot more drinking, unfortunately. But it's at some point you're home, you got to make the most of it. And if you can't go out and spend, $300 on a dinner, which some of the restaurants obviously are open, but not the way it is there. You want to have a nice dinner at home, so let's get some nice wine to go with it. So,
Right.
Mirer wine for you. So it's fantastic. So tell me about the kids. They got 3 boys, right? You got
So
any quarterbacks in the family?
time is flying. Yeah, the youngest is playing quarterback in high school. He's a junior here in San Diego, and he's enjoying having 2 older brothers that have been through the process a little bit, because
Mm-hmm.
the oldest is at Notre Dame finishing up. He's going to do a 5th year. He's a senior playing lacrosse. Mo, he's had a great experience, even though school's a little bit harder than it was back in our day. I think it's a little tougher, but
It's definitely a little tougher back now. It's a much better university. I always like to say I graduated from, I think we're the #1 undergraduate business school. It wasn't when I was there, but
yeah,
they're currently undergraduate business school.
yeah. So in Oliver's he's our middle one. He's a sophomore at Michigan. He's playing lacrosse too. And the sad thing about one of the sad things, not the sad thing, but when this whole COVID mess started in March, we were 2 days from, and I was in Ann Arbor with Oliver. Their next game was against Notre Dame in South Bend. My boys would have played against each other for the first
For
time.
the first time.
And the way it was lining up, Oliver plays defense, Mo plays offense, and they were both playing about where they're going to cross path. I mean, it's a bunch of bodies everywhere, but they're gonna square off. And
How far apart are they in age?
2 years, 2 classes, a little over 2 years, but two classes. So yeah, it would have been.
No, would it have been as? Do you think one of them would have got a penalty on the other one? Is it that kind of a brotherhood, or you think it would have been a little bit more? Take it easy, that's my brother.
It really might be good that it didn't happen. They're great. They're the closest they could be, but
Yeah,
somebody would have tried to do something, or at least I don't know. It would have got a little interesting.
little chippy.
I don't know. It's hopefully it happens this spring. I mean, I cross my fingers.
I think we'll maintain. So my prediction is, the schools are going to be hybrid or virtual. It's going to stay that way. I mean, I don't know if this vaccine thing happens and then it's all for naught, but I think they're realizing that the sports thing is cool. I mean, like if you have a problem, then you come back and pull back a little bit. But I feel like it's been successful in football. I feel like I don't know how the NCAA tournament would have been back then, but I mean, the NBA did it. I'm hopeful for you guys. Come on now, outside. They social distance most of the time anyway, right?
Football, baseball, basketball, and hockey pulled it off at the highest level. So, I mean, it can be done. The problem is for these non-revenue sports, how important, are they important enough to travel them and do all that? And that's where lacrosse falls, and that's these guys. But, there's a lot of, people just waiting to see. The conferences make decisions, and it covers the whole thing, and states are different. So it's a mess. But, I mean, my fingers are crossed. I hope these guys get to play some games. And I feel sick for the kids who were seniors at the wrong time or freshmen like trapped in a dorm the whole first year or quarantine and stuff. But we just got to get past it, and hopefully someday we will.
Yeah, I mean, from a high level, obviously, I'd like to see people healthy. I don't want to see people dying. So, taking that stuff and knowing that, not minimizing that any other way, there's a lot of shakeout that's going to happen in sports. Like, they're giving everyone a free year of eligibility, but then some people are playing this full year. So you're going to get like this backlog and of athletes where some schools are going to be in a weird situation. So the class of 20 and class of 21 are going to be seniors, or they're going to have their fourth year of eligibility in 25. They're all going to be at the last year. So you're going to have, like in football, you'll have like 40 or 50 kids in a class. So it's going to be a really goofy trickle-down effect. I don't know if that affects lacrosse the same way, but there's going to be a goofy trickle-down effect with that.
Well, here's how it affects lacrosse. You pay tuition.
Yeah.
All right. So football, basketball guys, and girls, other sports too. It's one thing if you get another year and they're covering you, but people have to make a hard decision. You just missed out on 2/3 of a season. It was your senior year. Do you want to come back and, or get on with life, or whatever. So it's everybody's situation is, I guess, a little unique. And we've been not the exact wrong class, but that's up till now. Who knows if this thing drags out for a while, it could affect these guys more.
Yeah, that will be. So your young guy will throw the ball around a little bit, right?
Yeah, he's the youngest, and he's lucky in some ways to have no fear of older people. He's played hoops with kids 2, 3, 4 years older than him for a long time, just driveway stuff. And now he's getting thrown in. He's in a good program here in San Diego. He's gonna, play. He got to start 3 or 4 games last year when a senior broke his collarbone, sadly. But yeah, he's getting recruited and he's enjoying the process. He's learning, and kind of his expectations are pretty high. It's so different than the way I did it, where I didn't know anybody that went, Division I, right? And now that's like these schools are just full of these kids that play all kinds of sports. So
yeah, I was just in San Diego or LA this past weekend, and think about in our day. I don't know how you were, but most people didn't get their scholarships till after they were done with their last game of their senior year, or maybe sometime during their senior season. A couple guys would go early and throw you an offer or something. But you pretty much, you felt like maybe, yeah, I think this person's a college athlete. Maybe I'm a college athlete, maybe not. But you didn't know for sure until then. So you had to sprint through the finish line. Now there's kids that are, class of 2024, and they've got 13 offers, and you're like, wow, yeah, already? So different.
In some sports, they don't even play for their school. It's club. I mean, I think soccer is a lot of times is that way, where if you're a big recruit, you don't even play high school soccer. You played your club, and I'm not a fan of offering these kids really young, and I think the rules are changing over time as far as exposure. But now with not just the internet, but social media, some of the huddle stuff, combine type numbers. If you run a 4.3, you're going to get people's attention. They don't even need to see you play.
If you really run a 4.3, but yeah,
yeah. But no, it's really changed, and I'm a big believer in can you play the game or do you test well? So.
I agree. I think it's too early, and I think that there's a couple of reasons why it's bad. It's too early. One, you're giving these kids kind of the jewel before they've earned it, right? So they get out there, and I'm guilty. My son got early offers, but I'm just saying that, truth be told, you're giving this stuff a little early. You're putting all these undue pressure on these kids that, because what they're doing is they're speculating, right? Hey, I think this is going to happen. It's like buying stock. All right, I think this kid's going to turn out to be something. Okay, he didn't turn out to be what I thought he was going to be, so now we're pulling the offer. The only thing worse than not getting an offer is to get one and have it go away, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so these kids are, no one asked for it. This is just the way society is. But these kids are just out here trying to work, and they're under such a microscope so early with social media and all the different things. We had the Lemming Report when we grew up, right? You look for that. Field and Stream had a little magazine or something. Was it Field and Stream? I think they had a little magazine, or Street and Smith. Street and Smith. Sorry, Field and Stream. Sorry. Street and Smith came out with a little something. Then you were there's a couple of little print things that came out, and I didn't know what Rick Mirer looked like until I looked at that little grainy picture. Maybe you were one of the four guys that got a grainy picture. Everyone else was just a name, and that was perfect. And we survived with that forever. But nowadays, everyone's, I'm in California, and I've got kids that I met a kid that's going to Michigan, and he's asking me about kids from Chicago. Like they go to they're in the same conference. They know each other, inside and out. Everybody knows everything. So I don't know. There's the beauty of it, but then there's also, it's like, wow, it's a lot.
It's working though. I mean, football's gotten guys just show up at the next level, whether it's college or pros, and they're ready to play. I mean,
Yeah.
I say that's visible. I mean, like the preparation part, the education. I mean, I didn't know anything when I got to college. I mean, we had to learn. Whatever that offense was, it was all new to me. And we physically able to do it, then you figure out, and it takes you a little while, and you do it. But some of these guys now, I mean, some of them are recruited or some of them are drafted because of the system they're coming out of. They already know,
right.
you know. Or I'll never forget Matt Hasselbeck, and I love the guy dearly. He was in Green Bay before I got there, but he at BC ran the West Coast offense, and Green Bay Packers were the purest West Coast offense. And trust me, when Brett was there all those years, they didn't change anything. I mean, it was the same pretty much the whole time, language wise. So Matt walks in day one, he could play a game. You know, he knew what the words meant. And for other guys, it's completely like learning Greek. And so sometimes that matters, and that makes a difference.
Yeah, I think the sports IQ is definitely higher. Part of it, unfortunately, is from playing Madden, right? These kids play these video games. I mean, what do we have? Tech Mobile, you know what I mean? And it was just like Bo Jackson left, Bo Jackson right, throw a bomb, you know, whatever. But nowadays, I mean, these kids they know their coverages or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's fantastic because I tell you what, when I came out of college, you know, I knew which way I had to go if the blitz was coming in the inside of me or the outside of me. I didn't know man coverage from nickel, you know, I didn't know anything. But, you know, no one ever taught you that, you know, and nowadays these kids are learning that stuff. So from that level, I can see it's a lot better. And they're doing so much 7-on-7 now. I don't know. Is your son participating in that 7-on-7?
Not much. They would have been, and there are probably ways he could have been doing it, but he's also playing baseball, and the club baseball stuff just stopped. So there's only so much time. But yeah, that whole 7-on-7 thing is I mean, you can go recruit kids just looking at that. And
yeah, I like 7-on-7 as a tool. I think some people are starting to think that that's real football, and it's not. These DBs hold people too much, and there's a lot of different things there. I know Michigan, they were saying, you know, they get so penalized because they're always grabbing people. And I was like, I guarantee you those dudes were stud 7-on-7 guys because they grab and hold like there's nobody's business. So, but it's a tool. It's better than nothing, I guess. And I don't want to say it's more than better than nothing. It's definitely a good tool for people to work and get their skill and their craft and to learn how to do things. I mean, running backs now are catching out the backfield largely because they play 7-on-7. The Notre Dame guy, the running back, number 23, you know, he's a 7-on-7 kid. So he's not a much more well-rounded running back than he would have been 20 years ago, you know, where they never throw the ball to the guy. So I think it's got its place.
It's it's a battle. So I can appreciate that. I mean, you still want to win, you know, I mean, that's all these guys know. They've never had a world without it. Right. And
yeah,
they're doing the best they can.
It is. So you get back much for games to South Bend when possible, or was your son, because he's a senior, so you've been there.
I go more in the spring because lacrosse is a simpler time of year to get in and out of there. Obviously, I've always had like one playing high school football on Fridays when the other, you know, or maybe some, you know, going to South Bend for a Saturday game didn't mean more to me than watching my kid play on Friday night back here. So that'll end eventually. I don't need to go a ton. I mean, it's a pretty good product on television. I stay in touch with enough people, but it has been fun to reconnect with a lot of people. You know, I see Reggie all the time or talk to him a lot, and Brian Radigan and guys that are on campus and working around the university. When T. Light was coaching and other guys come and gone, it's fun to kind of know who's there. I don't need much attention, but it's just fun to see a kid taking the dinner, be back at a different campus than the one we went to.
Totally different. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm lucky to reconnect, and then I have to split my time and be in Ann Arbor some, and then whatever Charlie does.
So it's hard to write a check to Michigan. It's hard to give them money.
The kid's happy. I mean, it's weird. It's hard to write it to either.
Yeah. Right.
But it's
you got to say, come on, Notre Dame. I had a 5th year. Could you use some of that and put that out there?
Yeah.
You know?
It's fine. I mean, I've done a lot for these guys, and they understand it, and they're doing great in school, and
that's all you hope for.
Yeah, I mean, we're just proud parents, right, and just want to make them happy.
Do you think they'll be in the family business? They're going to come in there and start squeezing grapes, or what?
I hope not.
Hope not. Move on, do their thing. So
I think they have other options. I mean, they show interest in their supportive, and they're old enough to like understand it a little bit. But yeah,
Hey, and that's a hell of a first date. You pull out an $80 bottle of cab on your first date on campus, man. I think they're pretty popular over there at Notre Dame.
yeah, yeah, exactly. No, they you know they don't do much wine, but like it's if you're gonna have wine, it's kind of fun to have one with your name on it, right? So
Yeah, not too bad.
yeah.
So, well, Rick, Richard, I'm not gonna hold you all night. I just want to let people catch up. You know, we got a lot of viewers out there that are Notre Dame family, NFL guys, who want to say whatever happened to Rick. Let them know you're alive and kicking, doing well, raising family. You know, I've read one thing though, the Mirer Foundation. Let's talk a little bit about that before we go.
Yeah, it was '96 where we did a charity basketball game, and we started and I didn't know how I wanted to do this from first couple years in the league, but I wanted to give back, and so we gave some money to the endowment for a scholarship for kids from where I grew up, or kind of northern Indiana focused, non-athletic stuff. And God, you blink your eyes, and all these years go by, and I get notes from all these kids every semester. It's 2 or 3 kids, sometimes 4 each semester, and they get partials. And you know, the endowment has done well, and so grown kids are getting some help. We've been able to generate money through some of the wine business, which there's a million charities that need wine, and we can kind of work that a little bit. But you know, we've focused on trying to give back where we can. The stuff I did back at home years ago, what my dad did a lot of, Boys and Girls Club, you know, Make-A-Wish, a lot of different things that we can do in different parts of wherever we bounce around the country. But, you know, youth programs, churches, schools, a lot of things that help kids with health and education. We're trying to do what we can. We can't do it all, but we're trying to do what we can.
If somebody out here is listening and wants to get involved, is that something they get involved in, or?
Yeah, the website was difficult for some reason. So there is actually a Facebook Mirer Family Foundation, but through the mirrorwine.com stuff, you can get to the Mirer Family Foundation. And we don't, I didn't want to have to do a bunch of events. We've stayed away from some of that, but we've done some creative things with wine. So there's a link on there where you can ask a question and we can get back. And there's always stuff that you know, people want to help or they need help, whichever way it goes. And we're willing to talk about it and try to do as much as we can.
Okay. And I'll put a link to guys under the show. So Rick, thank you so much for your time. Enjoy that weather out there, because it's not here. It's not all there. Don't ever take it for granted. Your kids are probably freezing off in college, but love you, man. Appreciate you taking time for the show, man.
Hey,
take care.
I mean, it's really good to catch up. I appreciate it.
All right, my man. Take care.